as I was telling Adam and John, that this is not exactly any educational content that we're going to create. This is a soul call of Dr. Pradeep to have his own blood, own, you know, you know. I was just telling some time back that probably my soul knew all of you separately in my last lives. So it was instantaneous connection with whether it is Joe, Melvin, Adam, Armin, and John. So when I saw John for the first time, he was on the staircase and he was going and he was signed with Dr. Arika and I saw him and it was instantaneous, like kind of instinctive. Uh, yeah, this is
I remember it. I remember it very well. It was
yeah.
it's a surreal moment.
Yeah, I saw him. Like it was. I don't know how I said, let me talk to him. I went, hey,
You're looking sharp,
Wow.
dude.
the,
Looking
the
sharp,
next
Ahmed.
movie, very soft. The next Tom Cruise movie is going to be kind of edited by Armin. No,
Well,
Armin, you are mute, brother.
Armin, you're on mute.
Armin, you are mute.
You got to take the mute on. There you go.
Yes.
There we go. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, great. So this actually, this has to be, I should take a screenshot of this and frame it for my rest of my life. I'm just missing Carl and Adrian, but let me take the screenshot. Anyway, I've taken the screenshot. Anybody else taken the screenshot?
Let me do one.
So guys, I wanted to ask you, I know Dr. Pradeep, you're talking about, meeting John, it being very special. And I think we've all sort of connected on a personal level as friends. Like, I remember Adam being on the forum way before ever going through his journey. And it's something that's very special, and I'm so appreciative when you see patient kind of happen. And Armin, I remember him calling me, and when he was in Eugenix the first time, seeing John's journey, it's incredible. Meeting Joe actually at the farm, we were both going through our journey together. And I think it's a great thing where we can all get together and hang out with each other and kind of just talk about our experiences. And it's something special, and I think that's what's all connected us, and connected us with Dr. Sethi as well. Because Dr. Sethi has such a large personality, and he draws people in.
True.
So, Melvin, I was just about to tell that, like, I can confidently tell that my soul knew all of you before. We all have met before. So that the instantaneous connection, like you are from different parts of the world. It is beyond doctor and patient relationship anymore. So you all like you all individually kind of that is throbbing in my heart and soul individually. Adam, John, Melvin, Joe, Armin, Adrian, Carl. So it is like I can't describe, like I cannot say being a medical doctor, very difficult to uh, you know people might not relate. It is very beyond. It is a kind of relation. The joy that I get when I talk to you guys is it is a supramental, supra metaphysical joy. So maybe a mother or father can feel that the joy that I get. So these are, you guys are pure souls who have come to my life, and my life I feel very fulfilled. Of course, you have done so many surgeries, so many people, so many friends, everything is going on. That is a parallel tandem world, but the bliss, the joy, the happiness that I get when I talk to individually, of course, individually they all you guys give me uh, you know your inputs and everything that has helped Eugenix to grow. Being patients, you individually guys are very, very knowledgeable, and you have done your research and you have given us feedbacks, and we have worked upon them in our communications, in our presentations, and that has helped many more patients. And I'm sure as long as Eugenix will be there, we'll be practicing on the feedbacks of you guys and other patients. So, but beyond patients that I get from you guys is, and here in this podcast, I would like to reveal that is, you guys have got amazing results, amazing outcomes, not only because of the skill of Dr. Pradeep, Arika, or Eugenix, or other doctors like Dr. Yudhis and Dr. Somesh and other technicians, Ravi, Kabul, all those guys, Mami, all those people. It is the trust and belief and the friendship that is very invisible, very difficult to describe in medical terms. But that has also led to this kind of amazing outcomes, which are I tell always whenever I talk about John's results, it's like if I will take the credit of doing his procedure, then I'm a thief. It is untrue. I can't take the credit of John's thing, similarly Adams and everything. So so it is the three things have happened: the science, practice in a very ethical way, and the third thing which is very crucial in the element was the love and trust of you guys. And whenever being a doctor, I've seen multiple times when the patient is very doubtful, and we know that in the forums when so many people they doubt the doctor and what happens to them, and when there will be always something will happen, even bodily the psycho physical reaction should happen in so that the hair would grow less or hair would go last, or somehow they will not be happy. Wherein when you are 100%, you have done your research and you have surrendered, and you are very happy with the overall thing, and then the magic happens. There is the magic really comes from the third element when it comes in. Otherwise, it is extraction and plantation, hair growth. But magic happens when the friendship is there, which is not there is nothing which is going to affect that friendship. The friendship is pure, blissful, voluntary, kind of decision of the soul that you have chosen Dr. Pradeep or Dr. Arika or Eugenix as your friend, and similarly vice versa. And that is the magic. It has nothing like the money has been given, the transaction happened, the relationship is, you have voluntarily chosen something. So the pure friendship between with two friends or a guru and disciple, or in any kind of, you all have experienced friendships in your lives. So friendship has no compulsion. It is not due to birth, or we are like not related to each other by blood. No compulsion, no sexuality in there. It's pure blissful voluntary decision of choosing somebody as a friend. And when that is very, very higher strata, then that results into this kind of amazing relationship. And of course, and that is that has I would say gone into fruition into great outcomes. So now so this was I wanted to tell to the world through you guys, and I wanted to see all of you at a time, and it was difficult to catch. And I was also after your procedure, the school and other things, the travels, it was difficult. And we actually planned last year with Melvin that we'll be doing it regularly. So
Yeah.
Melvin, I think let's come to a point where once in a month, once in 2 months, whenever possible, we can keep talking about this regularly. And I'm sure this Joe told me when I was in Thailand, he told me that it is a conference, it is a virtual conference.
Yeah. You brought up something that I think a lot of people, it's something that nobody really talks about, but it's so true. And the mind is so powerful, and we know this because, like, in any clinical trial, in any trial, they always do like a placebo, right? And the placebo effect is real, even though, right, people take sugar pills and develop side effects like they're actually taking a real medication. And you mentioned, when someone is sort of like going into something in a negative mind state with negative energy, with their mind is already made up before it's even happened. Like, for example, you gave an example of people on the forum that are, thinking negatively before their hair transplants even started growing. And I do think that that does have some influence. How much, obviously, I don't know. You know, if the surgeon did a good job, they carried everything out, it's probably still going to come out okay. But I still think that that negative outlook can affect things. And we know that, you know, the mind is a very powerful thing. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, 100%. I know side effects to finasteride are definitely real. I know some people have them, and that's undoubtedly. But I think there was a study that showed that if a doctor says there might be a chance of side effect with finasteride, that there was a 500% more likelihood that the patient would exhibit side effects. But when I came over for my procedure, on that note, you know, I was coming with Armin and John, and we traveled all. I felt like I was on holiday with friendships I'd already developed through the forum.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was at ease. I forgot I was having a procedure, matter of fact, because that happened on the back end of the trip. And, you know, and I also had the trust to see that, you know, John's results, and I saw him firsthand, and Armin's. I didn't see Armin's firsthand because he was already shaving down for his procedure, but it helped a ton, and I was just at ease. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps get some peace of mind. But yeah, I mean, I just kind of, I thought, because I've seen some people come on the forum and automatically have like a negative thought about the procedure before even anything's even happened. And I don't know if this has been something that's going online, but a lot of people have just started judging results based on like what it looks like post-operatively rather than allowing it time to grow. Like if someone will look at, you know, graft placement photo and say, oh, this is going to turn out like a disaster, when we really don't know. I mean, I've seen some people that have come that, and I would bet that it's going to look horrible, and then when it actually grows out, it actually looks okay. Doesn't look bad. So I think it's just important to not have that negative outlook, because I do think even if it doesn't influence the overall result, it's going to influence your thinking or your how you view it. And we know that hair transplants aren't perfect, so you're going to be like nitpicking every little thing, and you know, it's just not healthy, I don't think.
So I want
to. And especially when you consider the fact that, you know, going into it, you're a lot worse than coming out of it if you're going to the right clinic and they're doing a good job. You know, mentally preparing yourself and saying that I'm going to prepare myself for, you know, a better outcome than where I am currently, but not a perfect outcome, is probably one of the most important level sets that you'll ever do for yourself. You'll do yourself a huge favor by doing that. And I do agree with you, Melvin. I think that you know, when you think about the mind tricks that are played on you, I mean, because hair loss is a very emotional thing, right? And so you're taking finasteride or you're taking some other drug to try to slow down the progression of the hair loss, and your mind will play tricks on you, right? You'll hear about the side effects, and you could experience them yourself. That might be legitimate, that might not be legitimate, that could just very well be the placebo effect. And that's why I always encourage people to get, you know, just see it through. You know what I mean? If you have to microdose, then do that eventually. If it's a placebo effect, it'll start to fade away over time, right? And that'll prove itself out over time. And so it's extremely important to have a mental discipline to both the procedure and also the home care that you do too.
Yeah.
One thing that I always say about hair transplants is that the physical aspects, the easy part, is the psychological aspects that are so hard. I think it's the only industry you can have any cosmetic surgery, you could have a nose reconstruction, any form of cosmetic surgery, 2-3 weeks later, you're going to see the final results. But with hair restoration, it's so long. It takes a year, 18 months, and then it's just that it really is I always say that the physical aspect of recovering from a transplant is easy, but you've got the psychological aspect is 10-15 times harder. And I think that's what the forum is great for, because it helps people get through that killer part, which is the psychological aspect of recovering, because results are just not instantaneous, and quite the opposite. And I think it's the only industry where I believe that this is probably the case as well.
Yeah, that's why there's never really been, I mean, there's been some documentary style type shows for hair transplants, but it's so hard because you have to follow the patient so many months. and it, even at 6 months, the results aren't going to be what it is. I mean, my hairline has been what now, like 2 years? I think almost 2 years, over 18 months since I got the last one done. And if I look at how I looked even last year at this same time, it's matured and changed a lot dramatically, and it looks way better. So it's just so very slow and tedious. Even up until 8 months, you'll see changes for the better. But geez, that 18 months feels like forever. It could feel like,
Yes. And I never believed it. I sort of had 18 months. I thought never. That's just a total exaggeration. And now that I'm approaching 18 months since the first transplant, and I think it really is there. And even though the changes, I guess, after 12 months become more subtle, nonetheless, if you compare 18 months to 12 months, there's changes. There's definitely changes. So I was one who never believed the whole 18 months until I've actually experienced it. And now I preach it now. It takes 18 months for a transplant, even best case.
yeah, no, absolutely.
Hi, Dr. Arika.
Hi everyone. Sorry, sir, joining in a bit late, but I joined a bit earlier, but switched on the video a bit later. So it was a very interesting conversation when I barged in. I had gone for an evening walk with my kid, so it was a nice, refreshing talk with him. And I'm glad we were talking about the mental aspect when I walked in, and Melvin was talking about people thinking negatively, putting up their immediate post-op pictures. That made me recall one incident. There was a patient in the post office 2 to 3 months later. So what happens is we have very few hair growing, and they all take random directions. It doesn't grow exactly the way it was implanted in the initial 2 months, 3 months, 5 months after surgery. And the patient was freaking out, thinking that we have implanted at wrong angles. So this is something which invariably people start thinking that all the hair are going here and there. That's because they are not supporting each other. So in that phase when only 10-20% hair are growing, they grow in random directions, and people just get panicky about the direction of the hair that they are going to take up. So yes, a positive mindset, I would say, is very, very important. And for hair transplant, it is definitely very important. But one more thing regarding this cosmetic surgeries. Today, I came across this cosmetic surgery. I'll share with you. Most of the cosmetic surgeries, John, they take a lot of time. Okay, they take 3 to 4 months, good amount of time to actually manifest the results. Secondly, usually those results are very, very short lived, hardly 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, and the results are not that gratifying. So I would say hair transplant is class apart when you compare it with other cosmetic surgeries. With respect to the safety, the kind of visible results that we get, so we can't just play around. We can't say no, this is a good result or bad result. We can't debate about it because the results in front of the eyes. And I would say it's extremely safe as compared to other cosmetic surgeries. So just taking your time and showing you this video. It was about people breaking the bones and then putting some instruments to increase their height.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a very, very invasive surgery. It's called Elizarov technique, and it was covered by this Vice Asia News. So people are breaking their bones, putting these screws and all, and increasing their height. So this is a cosmetic surgery now. It has started in India also, but I think it's going on in the US for quite some time. So a lot of things are happening across the world, but we have to measure the safety, the positive versus the negative risks that we have. And we are lucky in the field of hair transplant that risk is very, very less.
And I think even more than that, right? You talk about the risk factors, right? But also, when you look at other cosmetic surgeries that might not be too risky, right? If you're getting a nose job, for example, or if you're getting chin augmentation, or if you're doing other types of things like that, that changes the profile of how you look to where you could actually not be recognizable, right? Depending upon what you're actually getting done. The beauty of a hair transplant is that it's almost trickery to the eye I'm finding that after getting it done, and John, obviously you being in Norwood 7, and have come a long way from where you were before, it's even more of a drastic change. But people still recognize you, and if anything, it's a trickery to where, you know, depending upon what your severity of hair loss is, they could look at you and not know that anything has ever happened. In my case, I'd say that probably 9 out of 10 people have no idea what I did that I know. But yet it profoundly changes your look for the better, without actually changing, you know, the profile of how you look. I think that's an incredibly important point to make.
You know, Armin, it's funny you say that. I had a podcast with a guy. His name is Win. Maybe like 9 months ago. He goes by Win200 on the forum. So he's had several different types of, and he's very open about it. He's had several different types of like procedures and stuff like that. And he said, by far the one that was the most difficult, I think, was he had the jawline, right? And that one, people instantly were like, something's different with your face. And that could be a bit jarring, and it's also something that you probably have to get used to. Whereas I see like hair isn't really, it's, I wouldn't say it's a cosmetic procedure, but it doesn't change who you are. It's just taking you to how you were, right? Like we were born, we all had hair at some point in our lives. We lost it. So it's just gaining back what you've lost. It's not necessarily changing you or anything like that. Sorry guys, it's my cat is meowing. Yeah, it's just like righting nature's wrong is how I view it. You're not necessarily changing who you are or anything about yourself. It's just like getting back the hair that you lost.
Melvin, that's true.
Adding a little peak along the way, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, my hair now, the hairline you guys created, Dr. P, is better than I had when before I, you know, when I was born, basically.
I love the widow's peak. I'm a big fan of the widow's peak. I think I'm sort of like, I'm interested to see how it would look on John. Are any of you guys thinking that?
I think the doctor may have discussed it.
So it looked great.
No, I think you look great. Like I think your hairline looks perfect. That's my opinion.
Well, watch this space. Who knows? The hairs behave. So the doctor looked at my hair at the end of June, and he seemed to think that there's scope to do a lot more. So who knows? The widow's peak may be there.
But what improvements can be done?
Well,
what did you see, Doctor?
I think you know, on the trust factor, I think you know,
you're muted, Doctor.
So sorry, guys, no, there are 3 questions. There is one question, somebody saying that corrective cases can be 100% repaired. Before that, I would like to highlight, like, you know, when coming to trust factor, usually, you know, God has given us wisdom and intelligence and tools, common sense. Use that. Once you decide, take a lot of time. As I said, minimum 1 year. Some people said 2 years, but according to me, 1 year. You know, once you decided your doctor, using all your, you know, faculties that God has given, then you pin all your faith and trust into the doctor, because you have done your research, whatever was possible in your capacity. Then pin your faith. Just forget. Just like when you put we sow the seed, and we don't, on a daily basis, we don't open the soil to see whether it has sprouted or not. So like that, and you know that, like, it takes 9 months, 10 months of hair to grow. That is the hair pregnancy, I say. So just allow that, and then you forget, like, you know, of course we do counsel, other doctors must be counseling. So then probably you can allay your you know, agonies and through that ugly duckling phase. So now coming to the question, somebody says, is it possible to have 100% repair in a corrective thing? So I told earlier also multiple times, I say that hair transplants are not perfect even first time. We don't get that kind of density. We don't get that kind of you know, angulation and artistry. Everything is not 100%, even if it is a fresh nascent case. So when it is repair, we all know that very difficult. So, you know, you have to extract the hair, and all those hair that is seen to extract, you know, some of them are in telogen, they're hidden, so you don't see them. So maybe 20% hair are there, So even if you have extracted each and every hair that you see, still 20% hair will be there, which will going to come back later. And while extracting, there would be some transaction. There will be some telogen hair. So two hairs are seen. We have kind of engaged them. The one telogen hair on the side which is not seen and that is left out. So definitely repairs are not perfect and very difficult. And Dr. Arika says that we should tell people that 2 to 3 times he has to come. And Melvin is dealing day in day out in the forum the corrective procedures. So yes, difficult, but more skilled the doctor and the team are, they'll be taking closer to you to a better outcome. And but I believe 2 to 3 times of it might take. Uh, Many corrective procedure Dr. Arika recently did that, female hair transplants, the ugly hairlines and all those things. It takes, yeah, it is, do it like we said, do it once, do it right. Do your research initially well. Don't jump just because some clinic is geographical nearby or it is very cheaper. So
Yeah.
that education is extremely essential.
I just wanted to make a note about the repair cases too, is that you also have to accept some things if you're a repair patient, right? So let's say you have bad angled grafts or grafts that need to be taken out of your hairline. You have a couple of options, none of which are going to be perfect. You can plant in between those grafts and camouflage it, which it's not going to look perfect. B, you can punch out the grafts, which will cause scarring. It's not going to be perfect. Or C, you can electrolysis and remove those hairs, which means those hairs are gone forever. It's not going to be perfect. None of the options available to you are going to be perfect, good, like options without any drawbacks. That's something you have to realize and accept. That's just the reality. So, a lot of patients that I've seen that have been unhappy are ones that, either they punched out the grafts and they don't like scars, or they try to camouflage in between and they can still see some of the old work. It's just maybe the safest, best option might be to just electrolysis it and remove it. But then again, you losing all those grafts, you're losing all of that donor supply. So I don't know.
So electrolysis is not perfect either, Melvin.
Yeah.
So it is not perfect. Very difficult. Rather, the electrolysis could cause scar, and the scar could be more kind of lacerated scar than the very planned. We call primary scarring and secondary scarring, or primary wound healing, secondary wound healing. So when you do the sharp punches extraction, the wound healing is primary. So there is a sharp edge of the wound, so that heals better. And usually, even in brown skin like ours, the scars are not very visible because the skin is so, here upper part of the body, this is so vascular, it heals pretty well. The scars are not appreciated. In pale skin it is difficult, but even in brown skin also, the repairs that we have done, I don't remember I have seen anybody who has complained of the scars. Do you remember anybody, Dr. Arika, where we have extracted and people have complained or they have become conscious about the hypopigmented scar after 2 to 3 months, 4 months?
Not from the hairline extraction, but yes, in our last 15 years of career, there was one patient who had a hypopigmented spot in this area, okay, in the beard area somehow, and he was not very dark skin colored, but I don't know what was the wrong. This is just one odd patient in my experience who had this white dot kind of thing, but luckily never ever here. But we should always keep our fingers crossed. We have to do a very good sun protection. We apply very, very mild steroid cream just for 1 or 2 days, and that can also help in reducing any kind of dark or light pigment scar. That is something we should be always watching for.
So one question somebody has asked is, I want to do hair transplant, but I am just 23. I think that is one question we should discuss. And but Melvin, please go ahead. What was your point?
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I don't have that much time. I'm gonna head out pretty soon. But I kind of just wanted to go around and ask. Hopefully, everybody can kind of give a little bit of their own story about like what made you want to get a hair transplant and how has the hair transplant changed your life now that you have had one. I think that's something that anyone who's researching a hair transplant, it's not necessarily the hair, it's what the hair signifies and what it brings you, right? Because for me personally, when I started losing my hair, it was more of like I always used hair as a form of expression, a way to express myself, different hairstyles. I love changing my hairstyle, and the idea of shaving my head for the rest of my life is sort of like the idea of someone telling you you're gonna have to wear this uniform for the rest of your life. You have no options of ever changing your style, ever doing anything. So it's not necessarily the hair; it's what the hair signified to my identity. And now that I've got it back, it's like now I feel like I can express myself in different ways. Like sometimes I want to do a different hairstyle, or I want to let my hair grow, or it's just having that option for me, which has been a game changer. But I'm interested to hear what you guys say.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that, Melvin. Different hairstyles now. I haven't reached that point at 10 and a half months. I'm just happy to have a hairstyle, basically. But I was kind of similar. I started losing it early 30s, 31, 32, and it was kind of rapid. But at first, I don't know, it didn't really bother me as much. It was kind of like, okay, here we go. It was in my genetics. My father has a full head of hair, but his father and my mother's father were, pretty much normal 6'7s. I had my now wife, and I was living in a community that didn't really necessarily it was more of an intellectual community. So like hair wasn't like, it was kind of like come as you are. People were very kind of down to earth and practicing yoga, meditation, and whatnot. I was sort of in that world. But I don't know, I saw the progression, and I never really liked it. It's not like, yeah, I'm going bald, but it was like, it was a cringe, but it was just something maybe I kind of hid from or like accepted or whatever. And then, right, I got to, the mid 40s, and it was that same thing, like daunting, like, okay, this is, you see some of the people who are bald, who are older, and it just felt like I was going into that old period of my life and wanted to kind of recapture some of that. And, like looking at the people and being like, okay, all right, well, he's a good looking, distinguished, intelligent gentleman. And, but I just couldn't bring myself to say, hey, I really want to be there. And that's when I started researching, and I met just such a great community, and it's gone more than just the hair. It's just gone beyond the expectations of being able to kind of, bond with people and make these amazing friendships. That's my story.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I think was what you said, Melvin, is that you have to wear one uniform all your life, which is baldness. And when you're like 24 and you look 50, you're robbed of your vitality. And so, you start to take a character. So if you want to express yourself on media, well, what can I do? I'm bald, right? When you're taking out your sister's kids, and you look like an uncle, people ask, how old are you, right? So it makes you feel old, and then you start to shrivel, and you start to do old behaviors. Whereas when the hairs come back in, everything opens up, the weight lifts off your shoulder, and now you feel you can express yourself infinitely. And that's a gift. That's a very precious gift. And so a lot of people, I think, they want 100% certainty. So I say, well, you can't have 100% certainty for every graft, but I can say if you get the right doctor, you will 100% feel so much better about yourself. That's for sure. If you've done your research, if you have the experts. So yeah, that's really my journey. And after hair transplant came, now let me work on my body. Okay, now I get bigger. Let me start a podcast. So many things open up, because before I was hiding myself from the world, because I'm living with this like question mark. So yeah, that's my experience.
Yeah, I think what you said there about being young and losing your hair, and sort of like your youth, you feel like your youth is being robbed of you. And I experienced hair loss at a very young age. And to the gentleman who asked the question, can you get a hair transplant at 23? Most of us have been there, right? John, me, Joe. The thing I would say is you need to get on medication first. You need to start on stopping the progression of hair loss, and then let that sort of kick in, and then maybe in about a year or two, then revisit the idea of getting a hair transplant. But I think getting a hair transplant at a young age, it does kind of like stop that youth being robbed from you, because let's face it, hair loss is always associated with older age, and when you're in your 20s, you you rightfully so should not feel old. You're a young man. Like if you're 24 years old, you're in the prime of your life. My gosh, I remember when I was 24, and now I'm going to be 38, and I feel better about myself now than I did when I was 24, which is sort of sad, but it's a journey. But yeah, I mean, I know, John, you experienced something even more.
Yeah. To be honest, like I think the story I always used to start with, because I was so bald and I was so young, that I used to lie about my age, and I didn't lie that I looked younger. I used to lie that I used to look older, so that I wouldn't get the strange reactions. So when I was 18, I would tell people that I was 25, and when I was 25, I told people I was 30, just so people wouldn't go, "What, this guy? How can you look so old for your age?" And it was just sort of, I just went so insular, and it was a scary. Like I look back, and it sort of haunts me that I used to think in this mindset, and having hair has just been so liberating, I suppose, and it's sort of allowed me to sort of be the person that I do want to be. It's scary that baldness does do that to a person, but it really does define to me. It defined the person that I was, and I would wear caps to the club. I would wear, I was known for this person who would always wear caps, and yeah, it's a kind of like a sad time, really. That I did lose my 20s in some ways to hair loss, but I guess I got my 30s back now. So I do, and I always say that if I hadn't have gone bald, because I lost my hair when I was 15, 16 years of age, and I think if I hadn't have gone bald so young, that probably hair loss maybe wouldn't have bothered me as much. But now, because I lost my hair so young, yeah, that it really bothered me, and I think if I was to lose my hair at say 30 years old, I probably wouldn't be as, I would probably wouldn't be on the hair restoration network, etc. Because I just don't think it would have impacted me in such a way. But I guess for me, what I've got out of it, and I suppose what I've got, I've definitely, like, I look my age. People always say, no, I look my age, and I also have a whole lot more confidence to come with it. And I think that just that confidence is the one that just kickstarts you, and it to be the person you want to be. I don't think a hair transplant, it's never gonna make you look at like a 10 out of 10 male, or it's never, but it's going to give you is definitely a confidence boost. And I think what we see, so these people that succeed in hair transplants, is that definite confidence boost that we've got from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of you guys are right. Like Joe hit it on the head, where like sometimes when people experience hair loss, they close themselves off, and they shy away from things that interest them, and they don't really want to be in the they don't have the confidence within themselves to want to go after the things that they actually want to go after. And hair for some people is like that. You feel confident with that. For me, losing my hair, and I'm sort of like with you there, John. I didn't get a hair transplant till I was like 29. So most of my 20s was lost to hair loss, and I very much, like Joe said, shied away from a lot of the things that I wanted to pursue because of it. And now everybody's different. Some people, it doesn't affect them. They shake their head. They move on. It's not a big deal. And I'm kudos to those people. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them. But if hair loss really affects you, then my suggestion has always been, get on medication first to stop the root cause, and do your research to, get a hair transplant. A lot of people will say, sort of like use the angle of like, don't get a hair transplant, don't get a hair transplant. I don't agree with that, because I think that if you do your research, you're on medication, getting a hair transplant is a good idea. I mean, it's, as someone who has had several, it works, but the key is doing your research.
Yeah, and I think that when you're younger, especially when you're younger, you're more prone to making the mistakes and acting just with reckless abandonment. I just want to get this taken care of, and I don't want to have to think about it anymore. And you're not going through the proper steps to finding the right clinic, number one. But most importantly, like you said, Melvin, just making sure that you get on the drugs. And I know that when I got on it, I got on it when I was in my mid-20s, a little bit younger. But it didn't matter how much research I did, I couldn't ever find anything that I would consider acceptable or that would be acceptable for hair transplantation back then. So, that for me, that was a long time ago. That was over, close to 30 years ago that I started researching hair transplantation. And the methods back then, quite frankly, were very scary. And you'd never want anybody touching you with a 10-foot pole. Now in the day and age that we live in, the tools that are being done for these procedures, the amazing techniques that they have out there, and obviously with Eugenix having the DHT technique and other techniques that they've patented, the way that transplantation is done, you can find the right clinic today, and you can get a great procedure done today. But if you're 23, get on the drugs and make sure that you're stabilizing. You're in a point of stabilization, because I have seen, especially on the forum, Melvin, where people get hair transplants and they're like, it's okay, I started taking finasteride, so I'm okay. And then start having negative side effects, and I say, okay, well, now I'm getting off the finasteride. Well, it's too late. You got the hair transplant. You need to stay on something. If you don't, then you're gonna lose it. So it's really important that not only do you get on a med so that you could know how your hair will stabilize or maybe even improve, but also that you know how your body is going to react to it, so that you could make all those adjustments that you need to make. And whether it's acting adversely to finasteride, only get on a topical version of it, or maybe I need to microdose it and see where things sit after I microdose. Whatever it is, whatever methods you choose, you got to make sure that you iron all that out, your home care, before you go ahead and take that next step in getting the transplant done.
You're not necessarily going to lose the hair if you're on not on finasteride. I think I would say, right, but there's a much higher probability. They're taking it from the safer zone, which is not 100% DHT resistant. So that's why it's very important.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me though, Adam, because I was in Norwood 3, I risked big time the native hair, right? And so even if the transplanted hair lasted longer or was DHT resistant for the most part, you actually just had a video on this, Melvin. I just watched a video that you just did like yesterday on this.
Yeah.
If you're not taking drugs, even if you're a Norwood 2 or Norwood 3 or something, maybe you didn't lose all your hair, you could really put yourself in a bad spot, all right? Because you could end up keeping the hair that you transplanted, but losing everything else around it. And in many cases, that pattern of hair loss wouldn't look like a natural pattern of hair loss. It's not, you see natural patterns of hair loss and your eyes go to it, and you understand that that's natural, the way it's progressing and the way it's balding. But if you get a transplant, you're losing the native hair but keeping the transplanted hair. That's going to have a very unnatural, unaesthetic look to it.
In the UK, there's a lot of men who go Turkey, like it's swathes and swathes of men who go Turkey, and maybe not just totally Turkey, but you can see, I'm noticing more and more people have just got the strips of hair at the front and they've lost behind it, the halos, and I'm seeing it more than I've ever seen it before. And I think that's just time where people sort of 6-7 years ago have gone to Turkey, had it, not took finasteride, and the fruits are coming home to
Yeah, to your point, Adam, and I think that there is a distinction, right? And the video that Armin's mentioning, I said, like, when is it okay not to take medication? I think if you're a Norwood 6, Norwood 7, you're older, not as important to take medication because you kind of already know what you're gonna have, so you're kind of starting off at a blank slate. The real danger and the real thing that you need to be worried about is when you're like a 24-year-old who's in Norwood 2. You know really where you're going to end up. And you could kind of see family, but even then it's hard because, like you mentioned, Adam, your dad has got a full head of hair, but his brothers or your grandpa don't. So you don't know if you're going to follow your dad's, or like for me, for example, my dad is 66. He's Norwood 2, maybe Norwood 2.5. Brother is 46, Norwood 2. So it's hard to gauge. Like, I could have been 23 and been like, well, I'm not going to lose my hair because look at my dad and look at my brother. But I'm being a Norwood 6. So medication is that insurance policy. Insurance covers you for catastrophes, and you don't want catastrophe. And if you're young, you get a hair transplant and you don't get on medication, in the future you can end up being in a catastrophe.
A great example, Belvin. You'll soon see this. My brother, he's going to be coming to Eugenix soon, having a hair transplant. Now, he took finasteride at the age of 18 when he first started going bald, and you can see he's maybe a Norwood 2 now. So, but he would have looked exactly the same as what I would have looked if you saw the pictures of my brother. If you say that that is an advert for finasteride, trust me, because I will share pictures I will share pictures soon, and you'll see his post that pictures in Eugenix, but that will definitely be an advert for finasteride.
So here I would like to, guys, I'd like to say that my experience is there would be a initial kind of intense phase of the height of baldness coming in, and if you kind of negotiate that with finasteride and other stuff, then after passage of 2 to 3 years, the intensity of the wave of baldness would be lesser. So the boy John's brother, he could kind of postpone his baldness, or kind of while the intensity was there, he could tackle it. And after 4 or 5 years, the intensity of baldness was lesser. And even if he will not continue to take finasteride, he is not going to go back to which potential he was supposed to become bald. So, like, once you cross 35, 40, the severity of baldness also goes down. So you have to hold on to your hair with your medications as long as you can.
When you catch a case early, like John's brother, where it's a Norwood 2, as a surgeon, does it give you so much more options to restore a natural hairline? How does it limit your options? As
Yeah,
a surgeon?
100%, 100%. Like, in Armin's case also, like, he started the finasteride when he was only 24. So the area to be covered when he came to us around 48, 49 was very small. So that, there is small area. There's not a big area to be tackled in this lifetime. He came at 48, 49. The scope of future baldness was less. However, if somebody comes around 24, 25, at grade 2, grade 3, and he's not taking medications, then you have to mentally prepare that you have to foresee that he can go to grade 6, grade 7, and you have to keep your hair stock for the future potential needs. So it is from your huge skill and as well as experience, you should know that you have to map his hair restoration journey for this whole lifetime.
Got it.
You should not be using all your scalp grafts in the front. I'm seeing all this random nonsense thing happens all over the world, that young guys, they're getting pretty low hairline and all these hairs are being used. Day before yesterday, I met somebody in Mumbai. I will share his pictures. He has got some hair on the front, no hair on the back. Similar case we saw, Adam. Do you remember the guy? The guy who came from the Turkey stuff. So he has no hair on the back, and he has put the planning was not there. So he should have like literally kept the hairline a little bit up, even if he was younger. And of course, the medications are the part of the whole planning. And then you have to I quote always here the forums, what are the end goals, how to choose your physician. Do you remember, Melvin? There is a page, how to choose your physician. I just copy and give that to all the patients. Please go through that again and again. So there, the first thing is, let me you can check exactly the word by word, comma, full stop. I remember he says, it is important to choose our doctor very wisely, because the physician that we choose would kind of ultimately give the hair, whether it is going to be long lasting, natural looking, for long period of time. So there he says the talent, passion, and skill of the doctors vary widely. So also the end results. So it is very imperative or very important that we should choose our doctor very, very wisely. So then the point starts. One, see whether what the doctor does, whether he does only hair or a lot of other cosmetic procedure. That is first point. Second is whether how much time. Sorry, the first is how much time how much, investment in terms of time, resources that he has put. Second is what hair or other things, or like, other cosmetic practices does he do. Then can he, there are many more things also there. Then he says, can the doctor or the clinic share with you a lot of, results, before and after pictures? How many patients they produce amazing results? Can they share the numbers? Can you meet them in person? So, all those things, of course, what are the reputation of the clinic and doctors in the scientific forums? So all those things are kind of, essential to know the skill and the expertise and experience of the doctor. So, Joe, coming back to your question, a lot of experience is required, and the doctor should be able to, once I see you, let's say you came at 24 or 30 or 35, 50, I should be able to, a master is he who can see everything and take a decision for the whole lifetime.
Got it. So you need to see the long term. When the technician or the doctor sees the patient, he has to plan for the long term. Because my hair loss journey in the beginning was really a journey of grief. You know, when you lose somebody, you go through 5 stages of grief. The first one is denial. And so I think for a good 6, 7 years, I just denied that I was losing hair. I was like, no, I see the hairs on the floor. Those are not mine. That's my body hair, you know. Yeah. And then it just got to such a point where it's like, oh my God, I'm really bloody bald. And I just had to accept it. And so how can people see that they're actually going through hair loss to be able to take that medication earlier? Like, do you guys have any suggestions for that, to not be in denial? Because I'd always see hairs on my floor and I'm like, no, those are not mine. You know, they're my wife's, they're my girlfriend's. You know?
My suggestion is that if you even question, am I losing hair? You are. Because once you see hair loss, you've already lost 50% of it. So if you've ever Googled, am I going bald? Get on medication, because 99.9% chance you're actually losing hair. What's going to happen at that point is then you're going to go into denial, right? Then you'll start to like look pictures at yourself and take pictures in dark lighting and be like, no, my hair, I still have hair. And then you're going to then go through many, many years of losing even more hair that you can stop. So
I think, yeah, that's a great point. I think it's important though to distinguish between, hey, look at me, I feel like I'm thinning, versus I see hair, because it's natural to lose, right? Dr. Pradeep, 50 to 100 hairs a day, just naturally, as they just cycle through. So definitely a difference, right? Like, are you looking, right?
If you notice, like for me, it was the hairline started receding. So if you notice in pictures, like, wow, 5 years ago, I didn't have this shape of hairline, then you're losing hair. Like, yeah. So
thanks for sharing that, because I had the issue where I would say, okay, actually, I'm losing the hairline. Then I'd ask people around me, and they would reinforce that I'm not balding. They say, no, it's fine. You know, I'm like, no, I think I'm balding. And then it got to a point where I was really bald. And after my surgery, they go, oh, actually, you were really balding. I was like, it's a bit late, you know, after my surgery, you know. And so how can people tell, like, what is natural hair loss on an aging hairline? What is natural hair fall? You know, because I think it's, some people worry too much, some people worry too less. You know, what's kind of guidance on that?
I think one of the number one things is you can't do the same hairstyles that you did when you were younger, right? And so if you find that you're losing options with hairstyles, or grabbing a double mirror and just checking your crown, because you'd be surprised how many men like don't do that at all. And so 5 years ago, and they look and they say, oh my God, like there it is, and they see it, it's as clear as day, because they never check with a double mirror. So I think just being in tune and making sure that you're knowing that there has been changes and you're making accommodations for those changes, and the people around you, because there's this negative stigma with hair loss, they're never going to tell you anything that's useful. Right? They're not going to tell you the useful things to say. I could tell that the corners over here are receding back. I can tell that your crown is thinning out a little bit. No, nobody's going to tell you. They're going to tell you what you want to hear, which is you're fine. Don't worry about it. hair loss is not a big deal, right? That's always what you're gonna hear from everybody else.
So, guys, we have only 4 5 minutes left. So I've just quickly, some people have asked questions. I'll quickly just summarize, some of the questions. Somebody asked about whether they can do hair transplant psoriasis. Answer is yes. It has to be controlled. It should not be too much. But if you do a hair transplant psoriatic patch, the hair is going to grow for sure. So about cloning, so a lot of we can have another session on cloning, but definitely as of today, cloning is not available. It can be given to you on a table, and yes, so pray that in our lifetime it happens. Somebody asking accident, there is scar of accident. The scars are compromised tissue. You will not have 100% growth there, depending on the thickness of the scar and what is the maturity of the scar. So you might grow some hair, but it will not be 100%. Then somebody says that would like to hear impact of oral minoxidil returning the existing and transplant hair and also possible side effects. So oral minoxidil, we have, now this fact is consolidated that it is working in a low dose 2.5 to 5 milligram. Side effects are pretty low, but if you are more than 50, then also you should look out 45 rather 40 45 5. Look out for the cardiac things and be in touch with your doctor about ECG and everything. Some people do develop the palpitation. I have one of few patients, but it is pretty low. Then somebody has said donor area is not having enough hair because of the past surgeries. Yes, once you have got multiple surgeries, then the finite hair that was in the back has reduced, then it will be a challenge. And then there comes the skill of the doctor who can manage with whatever little you are left with, and of course using the body hair. So you have to go to a very experienced and smart clinic who have the expertise in the past, and they should be able to show you multiple results of cases like yours, your kind of skin color, your kind of hair color, your kind of grade of baldness, your kind of thickness of the skin, thickness of the and the contrast of the skin and hair. So these are the questions that I have. Then Dr. Das wanted to discuss here. She says that please discuss about the grooming of the hair. So I think that is very important. Of late we have been talking about, since the transplanted hair does not have a lot of density the way me and Dr. Arika started telling the patient that, and so is the whole Eugenix team, that the transplanted hair in our hands is one third of the natural density that you had before the baldness. That means you you have to really style it to create that illusion. So, like, the way Melvin has kept hair, the way he keeps, Ajit keeps his hair. He grooms it, like, he styles it, put a little bit gel, and it is not that dense. And everybody wants to have hair like Ajit or hair like Melvin. But do really they have this kind of thicker? No, they have created the illusion because of styling. Put some products, gel, a little bit of powder. You know that, Carl also uses a little bit of topic. So, so just to create that fullness, that's very important. Styling is very important. You should learn that. You should go to hairstylist, or maybe talk to past patients, fellow patients. They can tell you. Uh, Melvin, of course, he is the smartest patient on earth, knowing that what are the limitations of hair transplant and how to groom himself, and does that. So these are all those things, the questions and some suggestions we covered. Thank you, everybody. Amen. Melvin, Joe, Adam, and my son John. So it's such a joy to see all of you on the screen,
Amazing.
and hopefully we'll come back again soon. Melvin, whenever you say, we'll come back. And I think this is the best timing that suits everybody. Early morning for some guys in the East Coast and West Coast, and it'll late for Joe, and it is around 9:30 for me. Only we'll be always missing Adam because it will be very difficult for him. Sorry, Adrian, because it will be very difficult for him to remember because five hours ahead of me as well.
Yeah.
So great. Uh, One more guy is asking about SMP. Let me take that question. That's the last one. Then we'll wind it up. I had 3 hair transplants in SMP. Please advise if you do laser or anything else to remove the SMP if doing the hairline correction. Thanks. Yeah, if SMP is not very bad, you can do the laser to remove that, and you have to do multiple settings. It is not easy to remove in one go if it is too dense, difficult. So, as Melvin told earlier, it will be never perfect. Whatever, once you do or enter into the corrective things, it's never ever easy. So, thank you guys. Uh, have a great day and a great evening, Joe. God bless you all, and I'm so happy and that you all guys came, and we always say that We all are grateful. Eugenix is grateful to you that you chose us as your doctor or clinic. Thank you, and we don't take it lightly. We want to keep you guys happy for as long as me and Dr. Arika are there on earth, with all our services, all our whatever God has given us medical skills. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys. See you all.
Guys.
Thanks, Star.
Bye.